So here's a question. If you don't have a meal for a whole day and you are given two options, one is full of vegetables with some rice, another is just herb steak with potatoes. Which one would you choose for your dinner? For myself, I will choose the second one for sure. When we have meat for meals in our modern life, people never think that our modern meat intake could be wrong or even harmful to whole human beings. Many people won't believe this, but we have data and facts from authority to prove it. Here are four brief facts that we found from the internet. They are environment hazard, greenhouse gas, water pollution, and soil erosion. Now, you may start to think that something is wrong with our current meat industry. How could we change that? For our environment and for the future. After our group research, we think that we should let more people know that current situation of meat production. And we also found out that synthetic meats and other alternative proteins like insects should be used in place of current standard meat due to the fact that they are nutritionally and environmentally better, as well as cheaper to produce and more regularly available than meat.
Here in the Western world, we have an obesity problem, to say the least. According to the National Institute of Health, we have twice as many people considered overweight than we do considered healthy. Globally, there are more than 1.9 billion adults and 41 million children under the age of 5 considered overweight or obese, according to the World Health Organization. This problem is more prevalent in the Western world than anywhere else, and it is, at least in part, a direct result of our Western diet. We eat too much of the wrong kinds of food, particularly meat. According to the New York Times food journalist Mark Bittman, it has been found by the Epic Panacea study that meat is the largest contributor to the obesity problem, and by the BMC study that accessibility to meat per capita within a country is the best predictor for how many people are likely to be overweight within that country. According to Bittman, meat gets overeaten and plants get undereaten in the Western world. It is recommended that a person eats about a half pound of meat per week. The average American eats that much meat in one day. Overconsumption of meat leads to more and more fat buildup until it becomes a health risk. This isn't necessarily a fault of the people of the Western world, says Bittman. In the United States, meat was and currently is heavily marketed, creating unnatural demand. The USDA, who are supposed to tell the American people about the risks associated with their food, simply refused to acknowledge the problem for the longest time. When they finally did, they released an overly simplified food pyramid in a meager attempt to educate the American people. It is recommended as a first step that we attempt to cut our meat consumption by half. For most of us, that would still be too much meat, but it's a start. Work your way down to about half a pound of meat per week. Further still, try to eat more fruits and vegetables not in addition to, but in place of, meat and other high-calorie foods.
The production of meat products using traditional means has numerous negative impacts on the environment. The harms will only increase as the population continues to grow. The population is expected to increase from 7.1 billion people to 10 billion people by 2050, and a third of those people will be joining the middle class, where their calorie intake will increase as income does. This will place greater stress on the already limited supply of energy, land, and water resources. Much of energy needed to produce meat comes from fossil fuel use in the forms of gasoline, diesel, electricity, fertilizer production, and machinery. For every 1 calorie of animal protein, 20 calories of fossil fuels are required. This energy input is more than 11 times greater than that for grain protein production. U.S. pastures and rangelands used to make meat products lose soil at an average of 6 tons per hectare per year. About 60% of U.S. pasture land is being overgrazed and shows erosion at a faster pace. And it takes about 500 years to replace 1 inch of lost soil. Deforestation of the rainforests and in other parts of the world is occurring at an ever faster rate, and part of this is due to clearing of land for pastures. Freshwater use is another concern of the environment. A majority of the crops irrigated are converted to animal protein, and this conversion causes 1 kilo of animal protein to require about 100 times more water than 1 kilo of grain protein needs. After all the energy used to produce meat products, a minor part of it is transferred into calories humans can use. Beef is highly inefficient to produce because only 1% of feed cattle consume is converted to calories that people consume. Poultry convert 11% of their feed to human edible calories. Greenhouse gases from the production of meats is another concern. Cutting down on meat consumption could lower greenhouse gas emissions by 15 to 35% by 2050, according to a study. Current greenhouse gas emissions from food use are nearly the same as that of energy use. While the way animal proteins are currently produced has many damaging effects, there are possible alternatives which may be implemented faster than we think.
A potential solution to the aforementioned problems could be synthetic meat. What synthetic meat is a meat cultured by scientists in a laboratory. What scientists will do is they'll take stem cells from a living animal in a painless procedure. Those cells will then be put into a growth medium that houses and gives nutrients to the cells. However, scientists are trying to find a more cost-effective method of doing this because right now it's very, very expensive. Those cells also will have to be attached to an edible scaffold to exercise the cell. They have to stimulate the cells as if they were in an animal. This scaffold will be removed later when the cells have developed enough. This whole process needs to be carefully monitored by a bioreactor. They fluctuate the temperatures to create an environment likened to that of a temperature regulated by the body of an animal. While this whole process sounds very different from the natural processes of growth, this could be a viable replacement for the corrupted industrialized farming industry. It could also pose healthier alternatives to regular meat. According to Mark Post of TED Talks, he said that we can coerce these cells in the laboratory to make omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids so that you can make a more healthy piece of meat. In the same way that scientists can grow these meat cells, they can also grow fat cells. This creates a greater control for the amount of fat that's going into your meat. Scientists can make these fats healthier and even add nutritional content. Synthetic meat could be a viable and beneficial solution to the problems created by industrialized farming.
So we've told you about the effects of meat in both the environment and production and synthetic meat. You might be asking, what else do we have? My answer for you would be insects. The first of which would be products like exoprotein bars. They created this because they realized that the United States was one of the only countries that had no culture of eating insects. Hence came the inspiration to create these exobars using crickets. In this article, we see the crickets are alluded to as the next shrimp, lobster, or even the California sushi roll. And it can reach different fads such as paleo and gluten-free diets, as well as reach out to people with food allergies. And ultimately, at the end of the day, insects are more efficient and readily available for use than traditional meats. And the latter of which is alluded to in this next source about the nutritional qualities of bugs, where in a study, 100 grams of 6 different types of insects, as well as crickets, caterpillars, mealworms, and bees, had more protein, calcium, energy, and vitamins than meat such as chicken and steak. In this article, the author Michaela McKenzie also discusses the environmental effects and benefits of insects. One of these facts that she alludes to is that livestock needs 1.3 billion tons of grain every year. However, insects take just days to mature and are cheap to maintain. In addition to this, there are numerous cookbooks available for sale with many recipes, thus indicating that we can cook and we do have recipes for this. Insects are considered delicacies in many parts of the world. For example, there are grubs in Australia, termites in Indonesia and Africa, fried grasshoppers in Southeast Asia, and fried beetles in Thailand. So I guess you could say the common theme here is frying food does make it better. And to close, these points all help to show that insects are healthy, sustainable, and attainable alternatives for meat.
I think from the safety standpoint, there are techniques to evaluate whether or not the mixture of amino acids and protein types would be significantly different than what people are used to eating. So my sense is that there shouldn't be a big issue in terms of a significant subpopulation being allergic, say, to insect protein versus synthetic meat versus the kind of traditional animal protein people are consuming now. There's already a firm that's done it, is talking to FDA. So I think that's probably 5-10 years away, maybe less. I think selling your grasshopper patties, that's probably a little further out, but I don't think it's gonna be because there's a limitation of technology to do it. It's gonna be the marketing.
Through the course of this video, we hope you have gained insights into the problems that meat causes in our modern world and the potential solutions to these problems.
The overconsumption of meat leads to an increasingly high demand for bigger and better protein sources and processes, leading to genetically modified animals, increased obesity rates, and intensely harmful environmental situations.
However, the world isn't doomed yet. With the advancement of synthetic meat and the acceptance of insects as an alternative protein source, we can start to overcome the damages done by the industrialized farming industry.
My name is Scott McCarthy, and I approve this message.